In this video, I will explain to you what is a master's thesis and give you the characteristics of a good master's thesis. Welcome. A master's thesis is a research study based on empirical evidence, an original piece of work by a graduate student. An empirically based research study is founded on data produced by observation or experimentation instead of opinion. This is the primary defining characteristic of a master's thesis, differentiating it from other scholarly tasks such as writing a research paper. When you are writing a research paper, you mainly provide an opinion of the different sources you retrieve. In contrast, when you are writing a master's thesis, you will not rely on an opinion of other works, but rather come up with their observations or experiments that will allow you to provide specific conclusions. Therefore, your master's thesis will be based on empirical evidence from your observations or experiments. Let's have an example to show the difference between an empirically based research study and a research article, with both articles exploring the topic of individual moral development. So let's get to my computer here. So at a first glance, you can see the differences. For the research-based article, you can see clearly that the authors do not have methodology. That's one observation. They do not provide any methodology. They just provide a problem, they present a problem and a thesis, and they dive right into secondary sources and they find arguments that they use in their research article. This is in sharp contrast to the empirically based research, which is a master's thesis submitted by a student. And we can see clearly here that the master's thesis has empirical data. In the first area of the abstract, you'll see the student or the researcher clearly highlights that they used a study with study 1 and study 2. Study 1 had 109 children and 42 adults. Study 2 had 61 children and 36 adults. So they had research participants because they wanted to conduct an observation. So when you are conducting your master's thesis, remember you are supposed to conduct an observation or an experiment. That means you're supposed to have a research group that you intend to study. To pass a thesis, a master's student must demonstrate logical, structured, and defensible reasoning based on verifiable and credible evidence. And that's the importance of either designing an experiment group or an observation group. So such knowledge also has to be presented in ways that make an original contribution to existing knowledge. So basically, writing your master's thesis is not a pointless exercise to fulfill your course requirements, but an exercise to provide an original contribution to existing knowledge in your discipline. So, reminding yourself that the primary purpose of your master's thesis is to provide an original contribution to already existing knowledge in your discipline will make it easier for you to quickly identify research gaps and come up with a topic of focus. To pass a master's thesis, the experts in your field must also determine if the original contribution made by the student is legitimate. The experts in your field can include your instructor, your supervisor, or a thesis committee. Before writing your master's thesis, it's essential that you determine the criteria for examination according to your university guidelines. Normally, when universities give out a thesis for examination or completion of a master's program, they provide specific guidelines that students are supposed to follow. Getting a copy of your university's guidelines and expectations on writing master's thesis will benefit you greatly. In preparation, you should also seek to understand the submission and examination process. In a nutshell, there are 5 main defining features of a successful master's thesis. The first defining feature of a successful master's thesis is demonstrating authority of a candidate in a specific field. This is shown by evidence of command of knowledge in such a field. For example, a psychology student may demonstrate their authority in their discipline through a master's thesis evaluating the effectiveness of specific therapeutic interventions such as cognitive behavioral therapy. The second defining feature of a successful master's thesis is demonstrating in-depth understanding of research methodology. A successful master's thesis indicates a candidate has a deep understanding of appropriate methodological techniques and is aware of their limitations. When writing your master's thesis, you can use quantitative, qualitative, or mixed method approach. After choosing any research methodologies, you must display your understanding of the method and the limitations associated with your chosen method. The third defining feature of a successful master's thesis is making a distinct contribution to knowledge. This contribution to knowledge can rest on the originality of interpretation of findings or the approach taken to discover new facts in some cases. For example, let's say a psychology student discovers that most studies evaluating the effectiveness of specific therapeutic interventions are qualitative and decides to utilize the quantitative approach in their master's thesis. This can be viewed as a distinct contribution to knowledge. Remember that contributing new knowledge in your discipline doesn't have to be complicated. The fourth defining feature of a successful master's thesis is demonstrating the ability of the candidate to communicate research findings effectively. Your ability to communicate in a scholarly manner is one of the significant areas of examination in a master's thesis. The fifth defining feature of a successful master's thesis is indicating that the research apprenticeship is complete and that a candidate can be admitted to the community of scholars in a specific discipline. It is essential to consider your master's thesis as an apprenticeship to become a scholar in your discipline. This will make you to be careful and to take your time to do the work yourself, to teach yourself how to research, how to use research tools such as Zotero, and we are going to look at the way you use such tools in other videos in the future. So take your master's thesis as an apprenticeship to be a scholar in your discipline, and when you do that, you'll not view your job as a punishment, but rather as a learning experience. You will be expected to continue contributing to your discipline with other scholarly works as you advance in your knowledge and education level. Remember that your master's thesis is not the final scholarly task that you're going to conduct. You are a scholar. The master's thesis is like the first stage of becoming a scholar. So embrace it, embrace the research, embrace the rigor that's needed for you to complete your master's thesis project. Thank you for watching this video. Be sure to watch our next video on the basic or the standard format of a master's thesis.